On an afternoon that Novak Djokovic ousted the clay court master Rafa Nadal from the French Open, we turn our attention now to cricket at stumps on day 2 of the first test between the West Indies and South Africa at the Darren Sammy Cricket Ground in St. Lucia. South Africa continue to have the upper hand as the West Indies in their second innings trailed by 143 runs with only 6 wickets in hand. Now, after resuming the day on 128 for 4, the South Africans added a further 194 runs to their total to be dismissed for 322, with wicket-keeper batsman Quinton de Kock top scoring with an unbeaten 141 against Jason Holder, 4 for 75. Jaden Seals picked up 3 wickets. The West Indies in reply are reeling at 82 for 4. Kagisa Rabada and Enrique Norkia have each taken 2 wickets. Scores in the match, you see there, the West Indies 97 and 82 for 4. South Africa 322. Joining us now on the phone is Fazeer Mohammed, who has been doing television commentary at this match in St. Lucia. He's actually on Zoom joining us now. Faz, not a good look for the West Indies at the moment, and we have spoken about West Indies' inconsistencies ad nauseum, but it's not our fault. They're always doing it.
Yeah, and that's the issue. You know, the challenge we always face in a situation like this, Lance, is that the criticism will be that, you know, you're crying down the West. It's not about crying down. It's about putting it in context, because let's again recognize the West Indies performed beyond expectations in Bangladesh, were very competitive against Sri Lanka. But again, you're talking about different quality of teams and again, a different type of pitch. And the South Africans showed up the West Indies over these 2 days. Again, there'll be a lot of discussion about the decision by Craig Brathwaite to bat first on winning the toss, knowing that there would have been quite a bit of assistance for the bowlers. It backfired on the West Indies, and today we saw them wilting under the effort of Quinton de Kock with his knock of 141 not out. And then towards the end of the day, but for that 5th wicket partnership, the West Indies would have been even closer to defeat, which seems inevitable going into day 3. So however you slice it, you dice it, you puree it, you mix it with a bit of optimism and so on, the fact is that South Africa have a better quality bowling attack, a more sustained pace attack than the West Indies would have faced either in Bangladesh or in the Caribbean against Sri Lanka. And we're seeing the effects of that now.
Yeah, Faz, if you were Craig Brathwaite, would you have opted to bat first on that opening day?
For me to say that I wouldn't would be the easy way out, because I felt that what he was trying to do was to suggest that, look, it's not so much about showing that we are the big and bad West Indies once more, but we back ourselves in these conditions. And maybe he was being overly optimistic. But again, when you look at it, over the first 45 minutes, you had Brathwaite himself as captain and Shai Hope coping reasonably well in very difficult conditions. Yes, they had to have a bit of luck, but then again, that's what you expect on the opening morning of a test match. But aligned to the fact that it was outstanding bowling from all these South African bowlers, not just Ngidi and Nokia. Everyone really stuck to the task. But you had some poor judgments along the way. Brathwaite was bowled offering no shot. Kyle Mays played a poor shot. You had Nkrumah Bonner struck on the helmet trying to play a hook shot to the very first ball that he faced, and now he's been replaced. So yes, in hindsight, it's easy to say that the West Indies should not have batted first in those conditions. But again, I don't like to go down that path because they backed themselves. It didn't work. But on the second day, they were going very well up to the end of day 1, but they just wilted on day 2. And you saw Quinton de Kock really taking advantage of what seemed to be at that stage a deflated West Indies team.
Fazir, the numbers can tell us many things, and of course what we can see from television, from our vantage point in television land, tells us other things as well. You were there live. Just how good was this South African bowling performance in that first innings?
It was very good, but it also exploited weaknesses. And this is what we have to point out. Again, in the same way that you heard England moaning endlessly about the turning tracks in India after they had won the first test, and those who have a bit of a sense and an understanding of the history of the game will tell you that the West Indies went there every so often in the 50s, 60s and 70s on raging turners and won test matches and won test series. So it's so often a dominating narrative. the fact is that for a lot of these players, the vast majority of these players, they would not have come up against such a sustained, high quality, fast bowling attack. You're not dealing with fellas who just are bowling a little bit here and there and then a bad spell every now and then. South Africa have been stung by the fact that they are now ranked below the West Indies. Clearly, it matters to them. They've replaced Quinton de Kock as their captain. They've brought in Dean Elgar, who was previously captain for a couple of occasions. So they're a team on a mission. And for the West Indies, yes, coming out of Bangladesh and then coming out of that series against Sri Lanka, they would have been feeling good about themselves. Why not? But this is a different quality bowling attack, not only by the excellence of their bowling, but the sustained consistency. There is no let-up. That they don't miss their chances in the field either. And again, it exposed a lot of the weaknesses and the vulnerabilities among the West Indies batsmen.
We're not picking on him. Well, certainly I'm not, and I know you won't either. But Shai Hope has made 27 runs on his much hyped return to the Test team. 15 in the first innings and 12 in the second. I wanted to assess how he went about those runs in both innings.
It was a struggle. There's no two ways about it. The fact is that Shai Hope in Test cricket is a different type of player, even more so when he's put in as an opening batsman, because it is not his natural position when you talk about Test match cricket. And he was sorted out by a superb delivery in the first innings, an almost unplayable one. In the second innings, right after a water break, got another sharp lifter, couldn't handle it. It went into third slip. But he deserved his opportunity because he had scored runs in the build-up. When you get a 79 followed by 100, and before that you get a half century as well, you really can't argue with that. And the continuing challenge will be, why does Shai Hope look so good and in fact so productive in the limited over game, but when it comes to Test cricket, he can barely get a run. He got pushed down to number 3 because Kieran Powell was the concussion replacement. And again, it was a struggle. So again, the question will be asked, what does he need to do to really be able to actually produce? Don't talk about being consistent, but just to be able to produce a decent score at Test level.
You know, there's a huge difference, Fazir, in the impact that a greenhorn spinner makes in a Test match as opposed to a greenhorn fast bowler. And of course, you know where this question is going. Young Seals and how he went about his work in that first innings for the West Indies.
Went about very well at the start. A wicket in his first over, can't want better than that. Picked up another couple of wickets late on day one. And certainly the momentum, the feeling was with him. But he has learned, like everyone else who would have learned, who thinks, well, in the context of a session and a day, and I'm sure he would have been told that a lot is required of him. Curtly Ambrose secretly told him that in presenting him with his Test cap on the first day, that look, this is just the beginning. And it's about sustaining that effort. He couldn't, because later on in the afternoon, on this second day, he took up a pasting from Quinton de Kock, went for 17 runs in 1 over, sprayed a couple of wides thereafter because he was under pressure as a 19-year-old. And there wasn't that level of support that he probably would have wanted at that time. But he has to learn. It's either you sink or swim. This is elite level international sport, and there's really no place to hide, because your weaknesses will be identified, your shortcomings will be sorted out, your strengths will be assessed, and certainly even the South Africans have identified him as a fast bowler of quality. Shah Langeveld, their bowling coach, spoke highly of him. Lungi Ngidi, Kakiso Rabada, their captain, they've all recognized that in him is a tremendous amount of talent, but that is not good enough. You've got to be able, from this experience, push on to the next Test match and the next, and ensure that you achieve that level of consistency.
And lastly, as we squeeze this last one in, Fazir, I was making the same point to Reds Pereira on day one, that the manner of the performances against Bangladesh away and Sri Lanka at home, if not a false sense of where we are, the West Indies cricket team, the Test team, a foggy sense of where we are, and that we're already cashing a big reality check.
Absolutely. We can't get away from it. 8 years ago, we won 6 Test matches in a row. We're up to number 6 in the rankings, and the talk was the same leading up to this series. And then the West Indies went to India, lost 2 Test matches by an innings inside 3 days, and it was back to square one. And this is why it is so difficult for for the coach, for everyone associated with the team to recognize that, look, encouraging performances at a certain level are one thing. When the big boys come to town, when South Africa are here, when Australia are here, Pakistan, a mercurial team are here, that is going to be a more realistic yardstick or meter rule to where you're at. And we're being shown up right now.
There you go. Thank you very much for your time, Fazir. All the best.
Take care.
Good. Lance, you know that I like to poke fun at the West Indies team. I don't know why I like doing it, but you would have heard me say to a couple of our producers yesterday that, well, I said it on the show, didn't I? That this game would end inside 3 days. I said it yesterday right here. And I said to Ramon Stewart, one of our producers again, that Quinton de Kock would make a century. That was when he was, I think, about 61, thereabouts. And I hate to have been right about those things. I'm not right about the result yet, but I suspect that we're not going to be playing cricket. We're not going to be talking about, you're not going to have cause to be watching cricket at 4 p.m. on Saturday afternoon, I don't think. The match will be over. Yeah. But it's just... It's a reality check, and a hard reality check, that coming off the high of Bangladesh and the high of Sri Lanka, we've come, and in 2 days, Sri Lanka have made us look like what we were before those 2 test series.
Yeah, problems in West Indies cricket, chronic, George. That is the fact, and that has been so for decades, which is why I always find it very disturbing when people were complaining that Jason Holder is such a poor captain and we need to change him as the captain, as if he is the reason why the team wasn't getting the results. You know, it's very tiresome for me to listen to some people, you know, complain and criticize and so on. But the problems are very deep in West Indies cricket, and we are very, very far away from, you know, resuscitating our game to the level where we'll be one of the best teams in the world. Certainly not in Test cricket. I know that the team has been working hard, and there have been some signs in the past year or so that, you know, they've been making some progress. But, you know, a lot more has to be done. The quality of this team certainly lacking to beat world-class teams. South Africa at the moment are not a world-class team, and they are dominating the West Indies. So that tells a story. Second zone update coming up after this.